This video will teach you the higher level of IPOC documentation. Your patient has been admitted with chest pain, and the admission process is complete except for adding the IPOCs. As part of the admission process, you look at the suggested IPOCs for the patient. But how do you choose the correct IPOC for the patient? Here are some helpful hints. IPOCs start at admission. The 3 hints to help you decide if an IPOC needs to be added to the patient's chart are: IPOCs that have to do with the ABCs likely need to be added. IPOCs that have to do with patient safety likely need to be added as well. Are we providing life-changing or life-saving care that is not captured in an IPOC that is already chosen? Then add an additional IPOC. Since the patient came in with chest pain, you decide that the cardiac output ineffective cardiac perfusion IPOC needs to be added to the patient's chart. Clicking the green flag will accept the IPOC. Using the check marks, decide what goals and interventions are appropriate for this patient. If you feel like a goal or intervention is missing from this IPOC, clicking on Add to Phase will allow you to add one. The patient's family in this example is involved in the patient's care. Therefore, the IPOC needs to reflect that. Typing in Family in the search field will help you find any goals or interventions involving the family. For this example, we will use Discuss Expectations with Family. Then clicking OK will add it to the IPOC here. You can also add a specific goal or intervention to your patient's IPOC by clicking on Add to Phase. Typing patient-specific in the search field and selecting patient-specific in the search within using the drop-down, then clicking on Search will allow you to find a free text intervention. Clicking on OK will add this to the IPOC. Using the backspace will clear the field, allowing you to type your own text. The specific intervention we added shows here. Now we have reviewed the IPOC and added any goals or interventions needed. We are ready to sign the IPOC. The IPOC should be documented on at least every shift to show any improvements or decompensations the patient may be having. This is done in Document in Plan. Charting on the IPOC is done by using the buttons with check marks and/or arrows. Goals are documented as met or not met. It would be appropriate for a patient to not be meeting all the goals, otherwise why would they be in the hospital? If a goal is not met, it is mandatory to add a comment to explain why it is not met. That should be typed here. The buttons that are arrows have multiple options to choose from in the documentation fields. Clicking on Sign Documentation will complete the documentation process for IPOCs. Notice the time and date under Last Evaluated updates with the new documentation date and time. Ongoing care includes updating the IPOC as the patient's condition changes using these 3 different ways. First, look at the suggested IPOCs and add any that describe the patient's condition. Be sure that there are not any IPOCs that need to be added due to the patient's condition. 2. Look at the active IPOCs and add any additional goals or interventions that are needed. In our example, the patient went into AFib and we need to add an intervention for that. Adding to the IPOC is completed from Orders View in the chart under Interdisciplinary. This is located right above Suggested Plans. Clicking on Add to Phase allows you to add goals or interventions. Searching for cardiac and interventions will show all of the cardiac interventions. Managing for cardiac dysrhythmias will be the intervention we want to add. Clicking on it will select it, and clicking on OK will add it to the IPOC. This process of adding a goal or intervention is completed when it is signed. Number 3. Look at the active IPOCs and discontinue any goals or interventions that are no longer needed. Discontinuing a goal or intervention in an IPOC is completed from the Orders View in the chart under Interdisciplinary. This is located right above Suggested Plans. We will discontinue the patient-specific intervention we added at admission, as an example to show the process. Right-clicking and then clicking on Discontinue will discontinue a goal or intervention. This process of discontinuing a goal or intervention is completed when it is signed. Those are the 3 ways to update IPOCs for ongoing patient care. Don't forget to document on your IPOCs in the Document and Plan section every shift. There are certain situations where you must remember to initiate Phase 2 of the IPOC. If a patient falls, there is a Phase 2 called Post-Fall that needs to be initiated. If a patient develops a pressure ulcer, there is a Phase 2 that needs to be initiated. IPOCs stop at discharge. Before the patient leaves, you should document on the IPOCs in Document and Plan. All of the inactive IPOCs still under the suggested plans need to be rejected with the red flag. Now you have the tools to document on your IPOCs. This concludes education for higher level of IPOC documentation.